to find a comfortable position. I'm KamalaDevi, and this is our Wild Love Laboratory. We're going to begin with sacred space. So I'm going to invite your shoulders back, deep breath, and whatever other micro adjustments your body needs for more flow, more energy conducting up the spine. And you may even want to rock your pelvis in order to tip your tailbone down towards the earth. With your eyes closed, you can direct your exhalation in towards the earth. So each exhalation is a descending extension of the tailbone. Simultaneously, your inhalation is an ascending, lifting, and filling, creating more space in the universe beneath your skin. Once you're grounded and your body's in ease, you can gather your attention into the heart. Find a natural rhythm to your breath and enter the portal that is beyond the physical heart. So you may just notice the rise and fall of the chest, relaxing the ribs, the lungs, the beating muscle that pumps life force through the body. And move into the subtle realm, the deep, energetic heart. Falling through any notion of up or down, in or out, entering into the core, the sacré cor, the sacred heart. And to deepen this experience, you may want to embrace if there's defenses around your heart or protection or wounding, just embrace it all. The love, the big love that's beyond the personal heart. So welcome in any resistance that you have, even to the journey of Wild Love Laboratory. You know, you're welcome to have your doubts or your judgments, but you're tapping into a space that's beyond the mind, beyond the three-dimensional reality. And as you tap into that core, you can also extend your ecstatic current down through your breath to the core of the earth. So take a moment to feel that from the core of your heart, you can begin to run energy with Mama Gaia. And at first it might just be feeling your feet or feeling your grounding cords and the various layers of the earth's crust below you. Allow yourself to extend down through the multiple minerals and elements towards the crystalline core. we're opening a channel for this, next hour together. We're opening this channel so that the soul of the world can come through. And if you don't know what that means, imagine that your heart is a portal to the heart of the world. And breathe that up like running an arc of energy from the earth to your heart, opening also the back door of your heart between your shoulder blades, extending out beyond space. And following the ascending energy, there's an ecstatic current that lifts up through your upper chakras, through the atmosphere, extending into the celestial beings that are dancing around. We are at a point in time in this moment, which is the full moon time before the summer solstice. It's a very powerful, potent time. I want you to feel your connection to the moon. And as you breathe, there's an ecstatic current that ascends and actually is informed by the various planets. So allow yourself to dance with Venus and Mercury and feeling the influence of the other planets and stars, Mars, and particularly because we're rotating around the sun, which has a very powerful connection to the soul. So I invite you to radiate your soul in communion with Helios, the sun, our sun. It's a reminder of our purpose, a reminder that we're here for something so much bigger. And the last great move in this meditation is an acknowledgement that this sun is also orbiting. And you want to tune in to the rotation it's doing around a black hole at the center of the galaxy. So allow yourself to extend your intention. It may be way beyond what you normally conceive in meditation, but allow yourself to extend way beyond the center of this void, this black hole, this absolute abyss that's actually filled with dark energy. And breathe that dark energy in to your heart. And let your heart exchange information with the black hole at the center of the galaxy and with the core at the center of the earth. A few more breaths, feeling this cosmic alignment. You may want to bring your hands to your heart as you gather that energy in, the dark matter, the love, the big love that goes beyond time and space. And as we gather these guides for the journey we're about to take in the Wild Love Laboratory, while your attention is inward on the high heart, I invite you to listen for wisdom, listen for a mantra or a message. We are invoking, evoking, inviting all energies that are equal to or higher than our collective circle, and we're welcoming in that guidance. We're asking for healing. And if there's a symbol or a saying Allow that to crystallize in your heart, beneath your hands. And just tune in for a final moment of intending. What would you like to get out of the Wild Love Laboratory if you could radically shift your love life, like give it an upgrade? And what would that look like? What would that feel like? Take a moment to intend for a quantum download from big love, not any small concept of love. Breaking past our programming, what's possible? 2 more breaths. Namaste. Gently opening your eyes when you're ready, coming back to circle. Beautiful. It was important to me to start with a deep orientation towards the wild love cosmology. And so we're going to be sharing about wild love as a movement tonight, but we're going to be sharing about a lot of things as well. So I'm going to give you a little roadmap that I'd like to do an introduction with, some of not just what is wild love, but also my journey. I'm 20 years now over on the path, and I have learned a few things by making a few mistakes. So I'd love to, as a way shower, it's like I've devoted my life and the work that I'm doing to experiment, explore, and then lead the way. So I want to share some of the lessons along the way. I know one of the themes tonight, I did a check-in at the beginning of the class before we started, and it sounded like this theme of like security versus freedom is really alive. So I want to be sure to take time with that, maybe a deeper Q&A, so that whatever real questions are up for you, we can address. We will at some point do a little triadic exploration. So we'll get in groups of 3 in the breakout rooms. And we'll also do, harvest from that, and, and see what, my work is so spirit guided. So see what other theme comes up before the final, closing. But it is my desire to offer profound value in this short time together. Like, your attention is really, really important. So taking the time to be really present with this, hopefully, I know will be fruitful, but it is, as you get as much as you put in. So I invite you to bring your heart, that the work is also a kind of a transmission. So there might be a mind, like a commentary that you run, or habits that come up. And I'm going to invite you, like, to be in no mind, to be in your heart, to allow yourself to be guided, and to allow yourself to be surprised in the process, as opposed to just in your personality. So that's why I did a deeper meditation, is so that we can set aside the small self. And this is one of the biggest things that happens when we start to tune into the enormity of the world soul and the enormity of our connection in the cosmos. And I know it's an interesting teaching to begin with, because a lot of when I first started doing poly, if you don't know already, I'm kind of like well known as a spokesperson for polyamory, because I was on a TV show called Polyamory, Married and Dating on Showtime for 2 seasons. And we made it really available to the mainstream. Like one of the things was to make it as accessible as possible. You know, I'm a mother and I've been married for 20 years, and how can we make it relatable? And so I'm also, you know, a tantric priestess and a shaman. And my director at the time, who's a Hollywood director, had said, you know, there's just a few rules. And one of them is you're not allowed to say God. Like, she just didn't want to hear me preach. And I can't blame her. At the time, I felt very fucking censored. But her point is, like, a lot of people are tuning into polyamory. They don't care about God. They don't care about, you know, spirit and shamanism. And so, you know, when I used to teach, I used to say there's these overlapping, there's many Venn diagrams, but one is, you know, the tantric spiritual path, and then there's the poly, and there, you know, and I'm in the intersection of that. But there are a lot of people like agnostics and atheists, poly, and people who are, it's not a spiritual path or practice necessarily. It's about long-term relationships. And for me, it's like the reason I'm poly is actually because I want to love the way God loves. I just feel that that's what God does through me, is loves as widely and as freely as possible. So it was like impossible to take that out of me. I actually told my director, I'm like, oh, you know, I don't know if I can do that. I might say it and you might have to edit it out. And it was this whole thing. But it turned out, on no uncertain terms, it shocked the hell out of me. It was the biggest gift I'd ever gotten. Because until that point, especially even as a teacher or a healer or a priestess, like, there's all this talk about God. And when I couldn't talk about it, I was like, oh, now I get to embody it more, and now I get to transmit it more. And I don't need all those fucking words. Like, I don't need to talk about how spiritual things are. I can just experience it. And so the 2 years that I had this gag order deepened my embodiment of how my relationships were. You know, I was showing up to the divine in every relationship, and it broke me out of the polarity that the divine has to be like spiritual and look this way. I was more like, hey, in the profane, in the processing, in the, you know, I mean, a lot of people consider the show that we did soft porn because the cameras followed us into the bedroom. So the show might look really, ordinary, or not ordinary, mundane. I don't know. It might look really banal, or because it's very cardinal. But for me, it's still worship. You know, like the fact that we were having threesomes and foursomes on TV was still very much a transcendental experience. And I get all the time when people see the show, they're like, whoa, there's something going on. I get the feedback of there was a transmission happening. So it's from that place that I want to share about wild love, because the term polyamory, although it's gotten a lot of popularity recently, is only one very limited way of being an ethical non-monogamy. There's lots of other non-monogamous paradigms. There's lots of other, you know, somebody at the beginning of the call said they were monogamish, and there's others who are polycurious, and, you know, so there's lots and lots of different, not just labels, but lifestyles. And wild love, I find, is an even bigger umbrella than even saying ethical, you know, non-monogamy or non-monogamy, because wild love could be amazing, deep, monogamous bond that is so soul ordained. So what wild love has become, especially right now in this like milieu, like 2020 is a time in which we're having a planetary awakening. And a lot of the astrologers and a lot of the sociologists will look back at the free love 60s movement, and they'll say, hey, there's like a resurgence of this kind of liberated loving that is coming from the core. There's like an awakening happening again. And the biggest difference between like the free love movement and the wild love movement is that free love was, and I do this because it was like reactionary, like, oh, we have the, you know, beaver cleaver, like the gender roles and marriage was this. And then the reaction was like wild love and make love, not war. And it's reaction to that. And the intention of wild love is actually to come from the core of the world's soul, to come from big love and not from the reactionary. We're trying to live our lives this way so that we're not defined by that. It's like, no, we're not going to the extremes. We're not a pendulum that's swinging from side to side. We're not revolutionaries that are trying to change culture because culture is bad or wrong. We're like coming from the truth of who we are when we wake up. And we are waking up. You know, the planet's waking up. And everybody on this call I know is in some form of awakening. And that awakening isn't tempered, you know, with the heart, through the heart and your own soul's direct guidance, you know, from the earth, from the stars, like from a sovereign connection to source, then you're going to easily be pulled into this direction or that direction. Like it has to come from you. And the expression of it, you know, monogamous, poly, swinging, queer, like that's only important if it serves love. And so it's a really interesting time because this solstice, this summer solstice actually aligns us. It's especially with the outer planets, it aligns the center of the galaxy with the sun, with the earth, and there's a series of eclipses happening. And so whether or not you believe in astrology, I'm not here to like, you know, invite you into my cult. I'm here to say there's a planetary shift happening, and the conversation amongst, you know, the wild lovers is like, hey, this is a time to tune in and see what's the truth of your heart and how can you orient your life around who you truly are, you know, not around best practices read in a Cosmo magazine or oh, I want what they have, or, you know, it's like this is an awakening time where you can, you know, through your soul guidance, remember like what you're here for. And it may be an expression, a dharmic expression. It may be that your work changes, or your, you know, your partnership changes, or your life where you live changes. But whatever that change is, you want to be responding to it from your core. And so, you know, when at the beginning of the call, some people said, what is this wild love initiation? My hope is that the next time, you know, you, by the end of this laboratory, the next time that you come to a wild love event or meet the culture or see that, you can say, yeah, I resonate with that. That resonates for me. And you can be a part of that conversation. And it's not like I'm going to join or sign up or membership. It's a remembering that happens in the individual. And it's like a grassroots remembering that's happening around the planet. The metaphor that Bruce Lyon uses, and Bruce Lyon has been, you know, channeling and professing and making poetry and prose about wild love. And he talks about this, like, we are emissaries of the earth. We're like the erectile tissue of Gaia. So if the planet is an organism, we're the ones who are waking up and turning on, and the planet's turning on through us. So it's a very powerful piece when you get the call. You know, at one level, it'll be like, oh, those are nice poetic words. But when you get the call, you know, it changes the way you orgasm. It changes the way you love. It changes the way you relate. So it's a real, you know, game shifter. It's literally like a reorientation to a new North Star. So that's the invitation. And And what's required of you, what's being asked, is that you just open your heart and you just start to vibrate with these energies that are already available to all of us, and to let that come through in your relationship choices. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit about my relationship choices, some of which can be relatable and some of which can be outrageously, you know, like you can disregard as part of the reality show. You know, I mentioned that I've been on this path for 2 decades, and prior to that, so I was 15 when I came out lesbian, and I wanted to share kind of life before the awakening, which was I was in a very conservative, I don't know, it's Orange County, California has its own like norms and rules, and it's all about looking good. And my mom she was a Latina, like a maid, a illegal immigrant, and she'd never heard, I mean, like lesbiana is something that was whispered like cancer in my house. Like, that was the attitude. And so when I came out, I really, like, it was really tumultuous, and I got kicked out of my house. And I won't get into the ins and outs of how confusing it was for me to not even know another lesbian, and to know that I was not fitting into the script. But I will say that I went to college and was part of the lesbian movement and was doing the LGBTQ like activism, and I got involved in both art activism, wrote lesbian plays, and then I fell in love with a man, which was like a total it was so incongruous for me to be like, I'm so lesbian identified, and I'm in love with this man who was more goddess. Really, his energy was so feminine and gorgeous than most of my butch lesbian lovers. And I was, at the time, if you can believe it, like I was a baby dyke with like shaved head, and in loving him, in loving the feminine in him, I recognized like the masculine in me, and there was a pansexual like awakening. And I followed him to Hawaii, where I had my awakening. And this came from, you know, living on lava. It was like through the dance, under the stars. I had a Kundalini rising that brought me to the cosmos. And the experience was afterwards. It was like, well, you know, in the dance, I got that I was unimaginably enormous. Like this, you know, this is a beautiful gift to have a body, a binary body that's temporarily borrowed for this life. But, you know, that who I was couldn't be defined by monogamy or, you know, being vanilla. It's like I had to try everything. So after this experience, and it took me weeks to integrate, I was initiated into kink, into polyamory, into tantra. And yeah, again, I was pansexual, and I thought I was lesbian, and now everything was available to me. And it was just like I couldn't be defined. So the exploration, the laboratory began. And I had never heard the word polyamory, you know, much less like gender transcendent, or these were concepts that weren't even available to me. And so I had to kind of reconcile, like, well, now what do I do with this? And I needed to seek some mentorship and get some, you know, teachers or healers, or like, what the fuck is happening to me? All I know is that like my heart was like this wide and I had this tiny body. And so that's when I set out on a path, and it was a world path of like backpacking and traveling and meeting teachers and studying at ashrams. And I've come fortunately to study with some of the most amazing, you know, tantra teachers, and I'm blessed to have had lovers and mentors along the way. And that practice brought me to the International School of Temple Arts, which, if you haven't heard of ISTA, the School of Temple Arts, you know, I think it was over 13 years ago in Sedona when I met Babadez Nichols, and we co-authored a book called Sacred Sexual Healing. And so that started me on that path 13 years ago. Now, I'm the author of, I think, 6 books. I'll tell you more about that. I'm really excited because I had two books just published this last month with my publishers who got hit by COVID. It's a whole mess. But the point is that the International School of Temple Arts put me in touch with the modern mystics that were exploring love. And this is real love. This isn't identities or definitions or agreement fields. This is like wild love. And so, I've been a lead faculty member, which brings me around the world. Like literally, we've been as a mystery school, we teach in 44 countries, and we offer these spiritual, sexual, shamanic awakenings. They look like a 1-week initiation on various amazing places around the planet. And what's happening personally for me in the last 13 years, because I have a 13-year-old boy, is I've been married to a man, and we had an open marriage from the start, and we, the vow that we took at the time was to love each other freely, to be true to ourselves and to be like as free as possible in our love. And that vow worked really well for the first, I don't know, I'd say the vow itself, created a container for our laboratory, for our, ongoing exploration, where we have about a dozen lovers who all know each other and play together. And then we hit, after the reality show, the whole media and everyone got interested on like, what are you guys doing? And can we show it? And we're like, yeah, we want to show the world that there's many options beyond monogamy. And this is a side note. I want to pin the story about my son and come back to it. We, after the show, hit a rough patch, and all the other couples, for those of you who saw the show, there were like 4 other couples. They broke up. And then Michael and I had a nervous breakdown. He and I nearly broke up. It was really, really rough, because to some degree, our relationship was still impersonality. It was still like the small self, that is, KamalaDevi, needed the security and stability of a partner to identify with, as to feel like, okay, that's what I need to be, to define myself by. And at the time, actually, for those of you who know Rachel and Booster, I know somebody at the beginning of the call mentioned that they're studying with Rachel and Booster. Rachel was one of our live-in lovers, and one of my deep sisters, who reflected back my deepest, darkest jealousies. And I couldn't reconcile, this free love philosophy and this animal nesting, rooting, like I need to, like, I couldn't let go of being a wife, couldn't like I just fucking fell apart. And it was, I didn't like looking in the mirror and saying, wow, my animal wants to protect its mate, and I don't like that jealous part of me, and I couldn't live with it was horrible. I was fractured. So I went through really dark time, almost, lost my marriage. And the only way that I came through the dark night of the soul was by really shifting these vows. There had to be a remarriage. But this time, reorienting, my husband and I changed our focus. Instead of like, we were married to the community in a sense, and we were giving each other permission to share community, and we wanted to be true to ourselves, and we were, being true to the small self in a lot of ways. And now, and it's only been, I think it was two years ago, the remarriage is when we married love itself, like a reorientation to that which is bigger than both of us. And that deep vow to let love guide us, and should love bring us together so that we spend the rest of our days together, that's beautiful. We'll follow that. But should love take us in different directions, we'll be true to that, sadly, with whatever emotions we have to move through, but that neither of us are going to abandon love. And it has been so rich. It just changed the game, because now the core of who I am and the core of who he is are the same. And the attractions and the manifestations and the agreements, all that's changing. We have changing agreements all the time, by the way. It's not a no agreement field. It's not a relationship anarchy, which, by the way, I also bless, but not my path. It's just that the come from for the agreements is coming from love. If we're going to make an agreement, does it serve love? And that's how wild love works in operation, between us. So what I'd love to do is go back to the pin and then maybe take some questions. So if you want to think of your questions, that'd be great. When I said yes to being on a reality show, which sounds like a really salacious, dangerous, dramatic thing to do, I knew it would be ego confronting. But it was aligned with this vow to dedicate my life to something that's bigger than me. It's like, I didn't want, like, my experiences are not my experiences. They belong to the universe. And so, who am I to like hoard in privacy, like this is my experiment and I'm not going to share the results, right? So from a devotional place, I'm like, I want the world to see that there's more than monogamy, but I also want them to know that like I'm a mother and it's messy. And it was really important to me as a new mom, my kid was only 4 years old, that my life be revealed, like not packaged and produced. And I was working with Deborah Tarjanopol. Anyone who knows, she's the author of Limitless Love. She's no longer with us, but she was the original, like, producing mentor for me in this process. And we wrote this, this not narrative, but like pitch about, hey, I'm actually a mom, and I was okay with cutting out God. I was okay with cutting that out. But when Showtime picked up the contract and they said, okay, we want to do this, but we want to show sex, which a lot of other channels wouldn't have, but Showtime's a cable show. And they're like, we want to show sex. And legally, we don't want to show sex and you have a child. So can we cut the child out? Because then it'll be not such a liability and we won't get so much hate mail and people aren't going to say it's so controversial. So we'll just make it look like you're single, or not single, sorry, that you're, that you and your husband don't have kids, that you're married and dating. And I thought about it, having put 2 years of like prep into doing this work. And I said, no deal. If you cut the kid out, what you're saying is, hey, polyamory and multiple relationships is like, it's a fun phase that you can do until you get married. Well, until you get serious and have kids, because then you want to settle down. Like, it's not possible to do multiple relationships if you're going to have kids. And that's a message we get all the time. And I said, I don't want to participate in the perpetuation of the biggest lie, because the truth is, this is a family orientation. Being, this big of a lover it's like, this is my family. And not only, you know, are my lovers my family, like I want my child to grow up in a world, the future generations, where he turns on the TV and he sees other families that look like his family. So he's not such a freak. And I'm going to be that family for some other poly kid. And so for me, it's really important. Like my activism as an artist is to say, this is a sustainable lifestyle that can happen with multiple generations. And what's also really important about that is that I believe, and this is my genuine belief, is that like for everyone who's coming into alternative, multiple, you know, partners, we're still so nuclear household focused. We're all kind of conditioned into separation, like divide and conquer. Like so many of the problems of our society are because we don't have community and extended family, and we don't have that. Instead, we have like, oh, we possess all of our separate, you know, like cars and everything, and it's not a shared communal experience. And that nuclear household orientation is a huge part of why our society is falling apart in the ways that it is, and that it's hard to cohabitate with other lovers because we have generations and generations of separation. And it is, I believe, and this is me on my soapbox, that the vision of having free love communes with multiple families is actually 50 to 100 years out still. Like it still takes a lot of unconditioning, unlearning to grow to a place where that's like a natural, easy expression, where we can live more communally, more tribally. And it's also my belief. This is where it's funny, because I know there's a lot of right now there's a lot of conspiracy theories happening, and people talk about the powers that be and how they're trying to control us. And I think that's all very beautiful, to question authority and to look at what's really happening. But I do feel that the monogamous paradigm is a design that, you know, the religious power structures know that people's sexuality, when controlled, when you're told that you can only share your sexuality with one other person, we know what happens to sex drives, you know, the depolarization. People start having less sex, people who have less sex are less happy, they're less in touch with their ecstatic current, they're less alive, they're less likely to revolt, and they're way more likely to look for satisfaction, happiness, control, power outside of themselves, which is, you know, why I genuinely feel that the, you know, the religious structures that do limit and our sex with shame and guilt and fear are doing so that they can control the ecstasy and the spirituality, you know, in the churches and not in the bedroom. So I know I've said a lot, and some of it's just my, you know, my musing and my opinions, and others are my personal experience. But I'd love to, well, looking at the time, what I'd love to do is have a Q&A after you inquire deeper within yourself, because, you know, if you give me questions, like I want it to come from closer to the core. Okay, so let's do a little exercise in a triad, and you can do your inquiry, and then we'll go to Q&A, you know, afterwards. So take a deep breath and maybe even stretch your body. We are going to shift into what's your experience. And yeah, I'd really love for you to look in your triad at how your life would shift if you were to welcome back. Yeah, as we you know, only have a brief time, I think we've, you know, pulled some of the questions earlier, and Sterling's going to read a question, because I know this was one that I got multiple times. And so pause for a moment. I just wanted to, acknowledge the work in progress, meaning like as we reflect, as we share, as we see, hear each other's shares, that it's oftentimes illuminating to us where we can kind of course correct or adjust towards more love. And then there's this kind of ideal of, this is what would change in my life, or this is what I'd like, or this, but that's almost like a rehearsal conversation. The rubber meets the road, when you start really showing up as love, and so it's like important to be like, let me be in that contemplation when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed at night, like what is possible if I show up as love, as a mantra, or as a meditation, or as a guide in your whatever spiritual practice you already have. So I want to say that it's not only an inquiry as an exercise at a workshop, but it's a spiritual directive that you can keep listening to and let it lead you. The questions that we ask in our lives are very potent, and they will reveal new levels of reality to us if we're asking the right questions. So this is a question I want you to continue to inquire way beyond this class. Okay, and then I also, I had Sterling poll for questions. Go ahead and ask the one that's on at the beginning of the class. What was it?
What do you do in a relationship where one person wants more freedom and the other person wants more security?
Okay, beautiful. So, when we come from love, we're coming from a non-dual place. Love is truly beyond, and this is the thing, is that so many of us have a small concept of what love is. It's like there's small love and then there's the big love, and the big love is absolute. It's like the pure white light, not the various emotions. People so often they'll say, oh, love and fear are opposites. And some of you could, say, oh yeah, when you're acting from fear, you're not acting from love. And it's like, love is so much fucking bigger than fear. Fear is a very important primal emotion, as is anger, as is sadness. I honor it, I bow to it, but love is not the opposite of anything. Love is God. Love is the absolute. And so love is bigger than security, and it's bigger than freedom. So when you're in a relationship and it looks like you're in the polarity, you're like in the struggle, like one person who wants security, that might look like, hey, I want a ring on my finger. I want to, make more relationship agreements, spend more nights together, spend more time together. Like, what does it actually specifically mean that for them, they want more security? And often that comes with a bunch of strategies. And the person who's in, freedom, there's probably some conflict because they're like, actually, I want more space. I want more variety. I want to meet new people. I want adventure, and you probably recognize right now that you have both those needs. It's nice to have security and, like deep dropped in time. And it's also nice to have adventure and reality. And like, when we're in love, we recognize that that's part of the play of life. Everybody needs security. Everybody needs freedom in different proportions. And different relationships will bring out different sides. So some relationships will make you really insecure and you're like, I want more security. And a different relationship, you'd be like, okay, give me some space. So what love does is love actually drops us into, I am another you. And if you and I are in intimacy and you're wanting more security in whatever form or strategy, there's a part of me that wants that too. And I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to wrong you. I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to really feel that that's what's arising as the medicine between our, our shared relating. Like, this is medicine that comes through. I have different needs, that my personality has different needs, but when I transcend the personality and I come from love and I listen, I honor that whatever those needs are, on whichever side of the pendulum I'm at, or the pole I'm at, I'm honoring that it's basic human precious need. Like, that's so precious and it's so human. And oftentimes in my relationships, and actually you can't tell because of my glorious background, but I'm at like, I have a triad. I'm at their home, and they both feel they want more time with me because I'm obviously a busy career woman and a mother and have my husband, and they both have wanted more security, more. And one of the things that's made it work for 4 years with their desire to, live together, is that I'm like, I really celebrate, honor that need, desire. I show up and I'm like, oh, it feels so good to be wanted. It feels so good to, and I'm sorry, that it's not like, I want to give that to you, and it's not realistic for me. Someone wants more sex all the time, it's the same thing. It's like, oh my God, it feels really good to be desired. Not like, wow, you're a sex addict, or you want too much, or you're needy. Or it's more like, I really love your desire. I love that you're, initiating. And it's not in truth for my body right now. My body needs rest, and I'm not going to shame or blame. We're just going to honor. And what happens is, when we're in this love place, and we're in the inside of the inside, it's not just I'm saying those words. It's like, I really get that person who's another me, like, wants more sex. Like, there's a part of me that wants that too. And when you're with somebody in their desire, like, I'm celebrate that you want to get married, and I'm not ready to get married, but I can feel the part of me that does, that's moving through you. That then people feel, like, heard, gotten, help. Like, when you're with somebody in something that you can't offer them, it's as good as giving it to them if you're really with them in it, because you're moving through love. And so new possibilities then open. It doesn't mean that relationships magically become easy when there's something, that you have opposing positions about. But when you come from love in the negotiation, then you're putting yourself in their shoes, just as you would if you were at a peace summit, between Israel and Palestine. It's like, hey, we're actually stepping over the border, and we're looking through from the Palestinian perspective. And it's very different than saying, let's just, bang heads. Let's actually, instead of fighting for this, let's go into each other's corner. And so this love, this freedom and security is one of the core human issues, but they're both parts of love, and love does not exist without freedom, and love does not exist without security. Like, love offers us deep security. In fact, our infants don't exist. Like, they need that secure love in order to survive. And so it's a very, very core thing to just embrace on both sides. And then new strategies and possibilities will present from a place of compassion, from compersion, from connection. And those are things that we can't see from where we're sitting right now. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to I'm going to wrap up the call and stay on for a little bit longer for any questions or notes, but I want to send you off by sending you with a gift. I have a chapter called Polyamory Roadmap, and it has how to make agreements. It has like different styles, everything. And all I need from you, because I normally would give you the link, it's not working. I just need you to send me your email address, and I'll send you a chapter called Polyamory Roadmap, and it's really potent. Sterling's going to take email addresses from the chat box. So if you want to just type it in, that would be great. And if you don't want to type it in there and you want to get it to me later, please do though. It's really beautiful gift. I also have Tantra terms, and I'd love to stay in touch with you on my monthly newsletter where I just do videos and share what's in my heart. The other piece that I'm really, really excited to just announce is that I edited a book called Sex Shamans. Just came out with 20 sex shamans and their life stories, and also a sexy, erotic, kinky, tantric love story called 52 Fridays. And that's on Amazon. And both of those books are new this season. So everything I just said can be found at KamalaDevi.com, KamalaDevi.com. So that's my shameless self-promotion, but it's an invitation to stay in touch and to continue to deepen with me. Okay, so for those of you that are signing off, good night, lots of love, and I'm going to stay on. We're going to stop the recording here, but I'm going to stay on